Hi there. Let's go over how to run commands in Docker containers. Before I get started, make sure you're running your command prompt or Powershell as administrator. I'm going to run the hostname command to show you that I am currently running on my Docker host called Docker. Now, let's run Docker images to see what I have available for downloaded container images. For this demo, first I will be using the Microsoft Windows Server Core image. Okay, let's run the Server Core image using Docker run. You will notice that a command prompt briefly shows up and we are now back in a Powershell prompt. Without passing a command for the container to run, the container simply starts up, then exits. If I run hostname again, you can see that we are still back on the Docker host. The first method for running a command in a Docker container is to simply pass that command to Docker run. Here, the container starts up, runs the hostname command, then exits. It will give me a unique hostname each time, because each time I execute Docker run, Docker starts up a fresh new container from the Microsoft Windows Server Core image. If I run Docker ps-a, you can see the list of containers that have previously exited. And the most recent container ran hostname, then exited 12 seconds ago. By default, the Server Core image starts in a command prompt. To run a Powershell command, you can pass Powershell, then the command you wish to execute, to Docker run. Here, I'm going to run get process. That's all well and good, but you won't want to have to start up a container for every command that you want to execute. Let's move on to running a container in interactive mode. To do so, you will need to use the -it parameter with Docker run. That is going to put me into a command prompt within the container. But naturally, I'd rather be in a Powershell prompt. So I'm going to exit this container and start up a new container in interactive mode, but this time passing Powershell as the command. Since I'm running this in interactive mode, I am now sitting at a Powershell prompt on my freshly generated container. I can now run whatever Powershell commands that I need. Okay, let's exit this container. I am now back on my Docker host. If I run Docker ps-a, you can see our previously exited container, which we ran the Powershell prompt in. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to run a command in a Docker container that is running in the background. For this, I'm going to use the Microsoft IIS container image because it is built on top of the Server Core image and is set up to run as long as the web service is running. If you remember, when I previously started a new container, it would exit immediately after it completed its command. If you would like the container to keep running, you can pass it the -d parameter to have it run in the background. Docker will output the container ID, and I can now run Docker ps to see my IIS container running in the background. In order to run a command inside this container, I'm going to use the Docker Exec command. And as long as it is unique, I only need to specify the first 2 or 3 characters of the container ID. You will notice that the host name is the same now each time I run it because Docker isn't starting up a new container each time. Just like with Docker run, we can pass -it to run in interactive mode. Let's get into a Powershell prompt in this new container. If I run the hostname command, you can now see that I'm currently running Powershell inside the container. And if I run get process, I can see it's running processes. That was how to run commands in Docker containers.